Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. You're listening to Full Metal Pod. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy.
So, did you have anything interesting happen this past week?
This past week, not too much. I don't know if our listeners know, I'm a really big Power Ranger fan. I've been one ever since I was a kid. And Power Rangers is leaving Netflix today, but today, January 31st, by the time you're listening to this, it will already have been released from Netflix. You can still watch the original Mighty Morphin and like the newest season, but all the weird in between stuff is leaving. So I've been binging as much Power Rangers as I can.
Nice. I never actually watched it, so I don't have the same nostalgia a lot of people have. My mom was actually, was one of those people who thought it was evil, so I never got to watch it. But I have friends who grew up watching it too, and they just like there's like that air of nostalgia to it.
Yeah, there's something about watching Power Rangers that's just it feels so carefree, and I don't know if you love cheesy 90s humor, then you'll love Power Rangers because even the newer seasons, that 90s humor never leaves. It's kind of it makes the show what it is.
Mm-hmm. Speaking about '90s shows, I was actually binging '90s shows this week too. Well, one in particular. So I have HBO Max, and every once in a while, I'll just go through all the different streaming services to see if, like, hey, something interesting was dumped recently, or like, or, things like that. Maybe there's something there that I haven't seen yet, something like that. And I don't know if you remember this sitcom. I think it only had like 5 seasons. But the Wayans brothers had a sitcom back in the like I think 1995 up to maybe 2000, and all 5 seasons are on HBO Max. So I was like, all right, I can do this because I remember being in middle school watching. At this point, there were reruns on UPN of the. Remember when UPN was a thing on TV? So it's like nostalgia for me.
Did I don't know now? I feel like I'm getting confused. But did they work in a hotel or was that something else?
No, they don't work at a hotel. They like so through the whole series, Pops, who's played by the late John Witherspoon, has a diner, and then like I think second season on, Sean has a newsstand on the ground floor of this office building in New York, and then Sean or Marlon rather just does random things here and there.
Man, I I remember like they used to be at the very top like when I was like thinking of actors, funny comedic actors. And now I don't see as much of them, but I do enjoy watching White Chicks every now and then.
Yeah, between the two of them, I think Marlon's the funnier one, but I also think he's been the most successful. Like he has a network. He has a Netflix show. I think just called Marlon. Then of course he has a comedy special on there as well. And then he's done different movies. Like obviously a lot of times you see him with his brother in films, but he's also done a lot of movies without him that got a lot of praise. Like I think was it Requiem for a Dream, if I'm not mistaken. Fun fact that in I want to say Batman, what's it? Batman Returns. There we go. So in Batman Returns, they were going to have a Robin in it, but Tim Burton cut it. But they still paid him for the time and everything. What's his face? Marlon Wayans was supposed to play Robin in that film.
Marlon Wayans was gonna be Robin for Michael Keaton in Batman Returns.
Yes.
I need to see like they have to have some photos of him in the suit, right? That has to be somewhere around. They do that. I want those photos.
They probably do exist, but I don't think they've ever caught it. So he apparently got paid like $100,000 for it, and he still receives royalty checks because he did, I guess, do some work, and then they went a different direction. But because he did the work, he's still eligible for, SAG payment on it.
Oh my gosh, that movie. Who's in that movie? Danny DeVito, as the Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Oh,
Yeah,
that would have been great. I don't know if I would love that or not, but I want I want it. Let's kick. What's kick? What is it? Kickstarter? What's Kickstarter? This get this happening.
yeah. Bring him in. What's it called? In the Batman 2, have Marlon Wayans come back as like old Robin or something. Though that'd be weird because Marlon Wayans is way older than what's his face. Dang it, Edward from Twilight. Can't remember his name.
Oh
Robert Pattinson. There we go. Yeah. So, but yeah, he is. That would be a little weird, but it could still work.
man, was Marlon Wayans in this? Now where it's like a Marlon Wayans podcast, but was he in this movie? Blank Man was. Do you remember Blank Man? Is that right?
I yeah, I don't think so, but I don't even remember that. So
Oh, it's Damon Wayans.
yeah,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, that's Damon Wayans and then Keenan Ivory Wayans, but then of course Marlon and Sean, like they're all related if I'm not mistaken, but um, yeah, they've all kind of have their own claims to fame, but they're all pretty famous in Hollywood, but different levels, obviously. Um, that's right. I'm trying to remember everything Marlon's been in, and like yeah, he was in GI Joe, Rise of Cobra. He was in a lot of comedies, but yeah, he's done a few things.
Man, now I'm deep diving in a Wayans hole right now. That's a very talented family.
Yes, they are indeed. I would watch them. It's funny if you, and not just the Wayans brothers, like any show, like if you're watching Family Matters or Step by Step or whatever, if you're watching any show from the 90s, it's like a little time capsule seeing some of the jokes that they tell. And some of them are like still kind of funny. Some of them are really dated because they're mentioning, the celebrities or news events that, if you were alive during the time, you get it. But I could see like a Zennial watching it and being like, huh? But then there's just some jokes that are just like in today's context are just terrible.
Oh, like stuff you cringe at?
Yeah, yeah, not to give away too much of a plot on a a 20-year-old show, but there's an episode where they start a cab service specifically to pick up black people, since black people can't get a cab in New York or whatever, as they say. So they start a cab service and they start picking up other people because like it's better business, and they pick up this guy who's clearly supposed to be like Arab, and he's got a box that's ticking, and he says, "Take me to the World Trade Center right
Oh,
now." And I'm like, yeah, that is a joke that did not age well at all.
oh man. Yeah, you gotta pause when you hear that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, good thing they made that joke in 95, because if they made it in 2002 or something, they would have been off the air.
Oof, man, gosh. Well, now I want to go back and watch some old '90s shit. Not specifically for cringe moments, but oh, I miss TGI Fridays. Was it called TGI Fridays?
Yep.
I miss that
Yeah.
so
Or
much.
TGI. Yeah.
Or is it just TGIF?
Yeah.
Is TGI Fridays
I
the
think it was just
restaurant?
TGIF. TGI Fridays of the restaurant. Though now I think they're just called Fridays because they want to appeal to a younger generation or whatever.
Oh well, I haven't seen either in a very long time.
Neither have I. I can't tell you the last time I stepped into a Fridays. Though I have watched, what's it called? Family Matters in the past few weeks or whatever, past few months. So that was in the TGI Friday or TGIF block.
I loved. I don't know. I think it was the TGIF block. Was it the dinosaurs?
I think so, like in the original run.
Yeah. If you want to watch a series finale that's gonna bum you out, dinosaurs. watch the dinosaur series finale.
Yeah, I mean, at least it was somewhat historically accurate, so to speak. I mean, it's historically accurate as a puppet dinosaur TV program can be, but like, yeah, having well, I mean, you all know what happened to the dinosaurs, so in real life, so that's essentially what happened in the show. But yeah, that is a very bummer type feeling to have, very, a very sad feeling. What's what's a Full House TGIF? I can't remember. I want to say yes, but I could be wrong.
I believe Full House was, and I was talking to my friend about TGIF shows, and you always knew it was a TGIF show if they took a trip to Disney World. Like the family would go to
Ah,
Disney World and have like a day at Disney World because they were all ABC shows, and ABC is owned by Disney.
yep. And then, of course, there are some shows that when they changed networks, it became very bizarre, or they not bizarre, but wasn't the same. Like when Family Matters was off of ABC and went to CBS, it just was never the same.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that happened.
Yeah, for like the last season or season and a half or something, they were on CBS instead of ABC
Uh,
because CBS, I guess, bought the rights. And I think that's around the time that the show got even weirder, where like, not instead of being a blue collar, a blue collar version of the Cosby Show or whatever, it just became Quantum Leap. As they, I don't know if you've ever seen that video from Key and Peele show where they joke about it, and like, yeah, like the very first episodes were pretty grounded and had like stories dealing with racism, drugs, all that stuff. But then Steve Urkel comes and like now he invents a shrink ray, and now they're stuck on the on the kitchen cabinet, or he invents a time machine and they get stuck in the 1800s on a pirate ship and stuff. So it just becomes weird after a while.
I just remember Robot Urkel and then Stefan.
Yeah, Stefan Urkel.
So Family Matters did take a turn. They were like, "We're going in a new direction."
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm ready to move on to podcast and talk about Full Metal Alchemist, though I'm also open to us doing a Family Matters podcast at some point. Who knows?
Yeah, all options are open.
I mean, we're going to have to do something when we're done with this show. All right, let's get started. So, this is episode 24 of our podcast, which is pretty awesome because now that means you have what, 24 hours of content to listen to. Get through a whole day that way. Anyway, we are going to be talking about episode 46, Looming Shadows, and episode 47, Emissary of Darkness. And yeah, a lot happened in these episodes. I don't know, I always say that, but really a lot starting to happen because we're getting closer to that promised day and everything. So let's recap. Let's start with episode 46. So some time has passed and the promised day is coming. They don't ever explicitly say how much time has passed, but from some comments that are made, it's clear that it's been a few months. We see Miles and the Brig soldiers in Risen Bull. They're there to unload water. Well, it turns out that their plan to unload these cans of water was just an elaborate plan to sneak Winry back to Risen Bull without, uh, you know, arising any suspicion from Central or anything like that. She returns home and checks out everything, and she begins to undress in her room, only to notice Ed in the corner of the room eating. She screams, the Brig soldiers run to check up and see what's happening to Winry, only to be caught off guard by our Chimera friends, Darius and Heinkel. They, of course, get attacked by the family dog, and then Greed shows up to grab the dog, and it becomes a thing. Basically, Ed and the crew didn't really know where else to go after they had found Ling, so they're just hanging out at Winry's house. Winry, of course, hilariously kicks everyone but Ed out of the room. Winry tells Ed that Al is with Miles at the train station. The train will leave soon, so Ed should hurry. Ed starts walking in that direction, but then he stops because he realizes that he is a fugitive and he cannot risk being seen, as that could put other people's lives in danger, not just his own. Al is shown in the train and Miles loads him up. He says that the next time they pass the Risen Bowl, he hopes that Al is able to see the town through his own eyes. Pinocchio walks in, introductions go around, Greed introduces himself to Winry, and naturally she's a bit confused because she knows Ling but not Greed. Greed fills them in on everything that went on up to this point, and they came to Risen Bowl to also get Ed's automail repaired. Winry fills Ed in on everything in Lior. Al is traveling with Miles to help with their plan that the North and East soldiers are hatching. And then Hohenheim is headed to some slum called Kanama. Winry suggests Ed go and meet with Hohenheim to get the whole story from him. Winry mentions that the promise day is coming, and Ed confirmed that, he knows. Greed filled him in with everything. He asked Winry to leave the country with Pinocchio. Winry refuses. She wants Ed to save everyone, not just her. Doesn't want Ed to fail, wants Ed to actually successfully stop the promise day from happening. Winry asks Ed to promise, but he doesn't because he's just like, I can't guarantee anything. Ed bumps into Greed. Greed mentions how much he wants things because, that's what Greed is. Ed shows him his arm and says that this was his punishment for wanting too much. And Greed disagrees. He thinks that greed might not be good, but it's not necessarily bad either because everyone wants something that they don't have. So it's just like part of the human condition, I guess. Ed leaves with the team in the middle of the night, and he promises that he will stop the promised day from happening, and he asks Winry to have an apple pie waiting. We see Jerso and Sampano with Yoki in Lior. They are wandering around, waiting on Scar and Marco, but just by chance, they bump into them at an outdoor cafe. Scar and Marco are actually on the way to Central, so they join them. While walking, they wonder why Scar is willing to save Amestris. I mean, it makes sense to them why they want to save Amestris. It's their homeland, but considering he's an Ishvalan and everything that's happened, why is he wanting to help? Scar says he wants to change the country. He wants them to acknowledge their crimes, and he wants to keep it from ever happening again. We then see an Ishvalan monk appear. It looks like Scar and Marco have been recruiting Ishvalans to help them over the past few months. We're taken to Eastern Command where Grumman arrives and speaks to Miles. It is the start of the joint exercises between East and North, and apparently Bradley has shown up to watch. We're in the train yard. We see Al, and he's kind of sleeping, kind of not. Like, he's not sleeping in the way we normally think of sleeping. It's actually him going through one of those phases where he is like detaching from his body a bit. And Al's getting a little concerned because he's thinking, oh, well, this is happening too soon. I might lose my metal body here, so we need to hurry up. Al worries more and he sees Gluttony actually, so he's a little confused and concerned, so he tries to run away, but he is captured by Pride. Mustang goes to meet Olivier. Mustang says that he is going to have to take her to dinner soon, but she kind of sees that as a threat. Mustang comments that Olivier has a large mansion and, it's large enough to host an entire battalion. Olivier says she'll leave it to Mustang if she dies. Mustang wonders, well, why not her brother? Well, she kind of says that Mustang's the lesser of two evils in this situation. Mustang gives her flowers, and in the flowers is a note that says Celine Bradley is a homunculus. She pretends to be offended by them so that she can throw them in the fire. Miles mentions that they have no idea where Al is. The promised day is tomorrow, so he's likely not hurt, but they also need to figure out where he is because he is a quote-unquote sacrifice. Bradley receives a notice that rumors have been flowing about Grumman planning to stage a coup, that this entire military exercise is a ploy. And Bradley kind of thinks that this was true, and he didn't think too much of it. He was like, yeah, I figured. But then they hear that they have been seeing some Ishvalan terrorists at Central. So they think that the plan was to trick Bradley to come over to the Eastern Patrol so he'd be away from Central, so that the soldiers would be away from Central, so it'd be easier to take over. Bradley's not having any of this, so he has a train arranged to take him back to Central. He heads off and they begin to cross a bridge over a large ravine. The train stops due to a herd of sheep on the other end. We then see the engine detach from the car and keeps going. And then, of course, the bridge blows up. Apparently, this was Grumman's plan all along. Credits roll, and we see everyone getting together. In particular, we see Riza teaming up with the former members of Mustang's crew preparing for the promised day. Post credits, we see all the generals around a round table talking about how the Fuhrer is dead, and Olivier, in her mind, is disgusted at how lost everyone is without him. But she sees this as her chance to seize control of the power vacuum. But then, out of the shadows, Father appears and tells them not to worry because he's here. So yeah, things are getting a bit more tense. We're getting closer to this promised day, which I think is going to be the major climax. What did you take away from the episode?
There was so many things that I liked in this episode. Uh, it feels like a lot didn't happen, but then a lot happened. I love Grumman at the end, just when his plan kind of goes all the way through, and you could see like, oh, he's the one who set this all up, and I like a plan that gets fulfilled.
Absolutely. I really liked that too. Like he was clearly what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just drawing a blank. Like he clearly played Bradley in all of this because he made Bradley very paranoid to the point where he would leave on the train. And then there's already rumors of there being terrorists out there, so it's not necessarily that they would immediately suspect Grumman as being the one who blew up the bridge. So yeah, Grumman's definitely really smart and he's playing his cards right.
Yeah, and the scene right before Bradley leaves the training exercise, and he's getting informed about this, and I was like, who told the plan? Like, what we have a mole in here, and someone let the plan go. And then a couple scenes later, and you find out that this was all Grumman's plan, and which I love when letting your enemy know parts of the real plan, like trick them into doing something that you need them to do to make everything go in motion. It's so ingenious. I loved it.
Yeah, he is definitely a sneaky guy. Like I don't think any of us saw this coming. I mean, we know that he's up to no good. Like that's just who he is. But yeah, I don't think any of us really saw this coming. And all of a sudden, yeah, this happened. Like I guess we figured, okay,
Yeah, I'm starting to really like Grumman now. He's kind of been on this like fringe character for me for a while, but I like a guy who's up to something. So it's really interesting. I want to see what he does next.
yeah. I mean, now we see why Mustang trusted him. Like clearly, he's on the side of good, so to speak, in the fact that he is willing to go through all this, and his army, which he controls the East Army, is teamed up with the North Army, and yeah, it looks like they're, and then of course teamed up with these Volans. So it looks like they're planning on doing a full-on raid of some sort just with Central, and they needed to get the Fuhrer out of the way because the whole what is it, the whole idea of if you cut the head off of a snake, the body dies or whatever.
True. Yeah. Yeah. If you cut the head of a snake, everything should just disappear theoretically. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I I'm really excited to see kind of where we're going from this. But on that note, in the beginning of the episode, kind of we see Winry and they're back in Risen Bowl, and just seeing Winry and then seeing Ed in their hometown, or not even their hometown, in their homes. It just was like, wow, these two characters have grown up so much because you see them in the house and you think back like they were just kids. It felt like they were just kids when we started this whole journey with them in the episode 1, and now they look like adults. It's a little it's interesting to see the change in them.
Yes, they are definitely more mature. I think it's because they've gone through a lot more. I mean, take Winry, for example. Granted, at the beginning of the series, she dealt with, the death of her parents at a young age and stuff and growing up effectively an orphan. I mean, I know she had Granny, but she didn't have parents. But since then she's had to deal with like confronting the killer of her parents and um what else she have to deal with, like being used as a hostage piece and whatnot, like all of that was being done to her, so that's kind of forced her to grow up. Ed and Al went from simply just trying to find a way to get their bodies back to learning about this truth of the Philosopher's Stone and also the corruption of the military. So it's like everything that's happened has forced them to grow up faster than they probably ever thought they'd have to.
Yeah, it's I never really noticed the change until this episode, and I wonder if it's them being back in Winry's house and just remembering when they were kids, and now you see them and they just like they do look like the world has taken a toll on them. They don't look as carefree, even though they may have the carefree instincts in them. They don't feel as carefree as they were back in season one.
Yeah, I'll give you that. They definitely seem more intense. Of course, there's also that fact that the promise day is right around the corner, and that's the big day when everything bad's going to take place, I guess. So,
Yeah, and we see that you know they're still with Greed. Was it Greedling? They're still in Greedling's gang.
mm-hmm.
But are they true? I mean, I always find it seems like they're in the gang, but they're also kind of moving it the way they want to because they're at Granny's house and they're chilling there, getting ready to go. So
It's nice to see them becoming more adult. And granted, they were always pretty adult in the fact that, we learned that they've dealt with a lot of problems early in their life. But yeah, just seeing this determination in them, like now they're not just doing it for themselves, they're doing it for the good of everybody around them.
I like that Winry looks over his auto mail one last time, and then they have to leave um, in the middle of the night, or are they leaving in the middle of the night or early morning? They wanted to leave earlier, I
It
know,
was like middle of the night.
but it's interesting. And then like Ed can't go see Al, even though he wants to, which I found really it really upset me a little bit because you see he's Winry tells him, and then he rushes that way, and then he stops himself because he knows he
Mm-hmm.
can't see Al because he'll just bring danger to Al. Little does he know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. He's just like, yeah, it's sad because you know how close they are, but he's like, it's too close to the time. I'm a fugitive. I don't want to put anybody at risk. So he's just like, we're just gonna have to wait until after the promise day or meet up on the promise day or whatnot and be all right with that.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully they'll meet sooner than later. I also love in this episode another thing I really loved a lot was Miles talking to Al and being like, the next time you see your hometown, I hope it's through your own eyes. And I really like that moment. It's kind of like we haven't forgotten about what you guys are on a mission for.
Yeah, just to see other people care so much is nice. Like a lot of the soldiers, like Miles and whatnot, seem to be pretty hard, so to speak, or very cold, whatever term you want to use. But when they have conversations like that, it's like, okay, that's nice.
It's great seeing the other side of certain characters and like learning that they're not just this outer shell, that they're more than that.
Yes, and everybody's still on the side of the brothers, wanting to them to get their bodies back, and like, yeah, I think it is also funny, just as you mentioned, like they all still recognize that that's what the brothers want, like in spite of all of this craziness going on with needing to take over the government and everything and stop Father from doing his evil attack or whatever, like they still have this "Hey, we want to help you out" mentality.
Yeah, I love that. And unfortunately, Al gets attacked by gluttony and pride at this moment, and he's like at his most vulnerable.
Yeah, this is another one of those instances where somebody's like takes over his body essentially,
Yeah, oh,
because we see like
yeah.
Pride grab him, and I think Pride like jump into him or whatnot, and we see the little tendrils touch his the little symbol or whatnot. So I don't think he killed Al because he can't. I think he like maybe used his powers to put him to sleep or something.
I don't know. Anytime I feel like we're messing with that symbol, it's too uncomfortable for me. That's Al's lifeline to the real world. So I don't want anyone touching it.
Yeah, he. I guess yeah, that's always a thing because he mentioned earlier in the series that if that ever gets deleted or ruined, that he would die, and then we do see that happen to Barry the Chopper. So yeah, it always makes me a little uncomfortable too whenever they get too close to the little blood symbol.
That's happening, and then in that same instance, Al is seeing his body. He's getting visions of his body, where the truth is.
Yeah, so it's like his, I guess his metal body is starting to reject his old body or something to that effect. So, or yeah, his soul is starting to reject his metal body, and once that happens, his soul's got to go somewhere. So it's probably going to try to go back to his body, but his body is on the other side of the gate. So
And it's interesting that he's seeing the same. He's seeing his actual body, even though he's never seen it. I believe only person who's seen it is Edward.
I think, yeah, he's never actually seen it. You're right about that one. Like in the same way that Edward did, where he went through the gate and saw his body. But I do think he is seeing it, like when he gets pulled closer.
Yeah, I mean, like he is seeing it, it's he's seeing the true vision of his body. So I wonder if there's like some connection there. Like he's seeing what we know is true. It's not like he senses it and his mind is thinking of something. Because what his mind is thinking, unless he's like really good at imagining, but he's seeing exactly what we've seen to be his body.
Well, I mean, hopefully he's all right. We know that Pride and them won't kill him because he's a sacrifice. He is needed to be alive during the promised day. That's what they've been pretty much doing up to this point. The Homunculus trying to keep him alive. So I don't know. I guess we're gonna have to see what happens
I'm
next.
also curious about why keep certain people are like certain souls more like powerful to power them up because I assume they're making a giant philosopher's stone because that's the only reason we've seen one of these happen unless something else is going to happen, but it seems like they want to keep certain people around because they're like they offer more than a regular soul would, I guess.
I think yeah. Well, I think it's because if we see everybody that they mention in that earlier episode where we see him with Father with like those chess pieces or whatever you want to call them, and he's naming out the different people, and he's saying like, okay, Edward Elric, Alphonse Elric. One thing I've noticed is that the four people he named are all people who open the gate. So I think there is something about being able to open the gate that he needs them for. He needs them to help open a larger gate, or I don't know, something like that.
I mean, the promised day is coming, so we're gonna find out soon enough.
Very true. I guess on that note, unless you have anything else, we can just jump to the next one.
Now, my animal instincts are saying this next episode is gonna be really good.
Trust those instincts. All right, so let's just jump into it. Episode 47, Emissary of Darkness. We start with Alphonse waking up. At first, we think maybe it's his body waking him up because it's clearly in his head because we see the white expanse and everything, but it's Pride. Ed arrives in Kaunamazi, Hohenheim. Of course, the first thing Ed does is punch Hohenheim. Greed introduces himself to Hohenheim, and then Greed, says, yeah, I'm a homunculus. Hohenheim then tells his whole story to them. Ed has a hard time accepting this truth. It seems like he's having a harder time than Al did. Hohenheim offers them his Philosopher's Stone in order to get their bodies back. Ed refuses to use other people's souls to fix his mistakes. Hohenheim is proud of Ed for this viewpoint. Hohenheim also points out that there is a solar eclipse tomorrow, and that is what Father's waiting for. Hohenheim asks for Ed's help, but Ed refuses. Ed still is going to help, but he is making a point that, hey, we just happen to have the same goal. I'm not actually helping you. Then Ed gives Hohenheim his mom's final words, which were, sorry I couldn't keep my promise, but I am dying first. We see Hohenheim start to look up and cry, and I think Ed sees him in a different light for the first time. While eating, Darius and Heinkel want Ed to talk to his dad. Ed refuses to, and they try to get to the bottom of it. They try to figure out why he refuses to talk to him. And it seems like Ed just is lost. Like he just this wasn't what he was expecting when he was meeting Hohenheim, and I think that's what's making him angry, and that's so much what he says. Hohenheim stares into the fire that he is sitting in, like a little campfire, and it reminds him of all the talks he had with Trisha and how he asked her to wait. Hohenheim talks to his photo of Trisha, saying that he should have been with her when she died. Hohenheim then says, tomorrow, Trisha. Ed buys a bolt of red fabric and uses it to create a new red cloak. Obviously, he wants to fight in style. Ed tells the other guys that they need to leave, that things are going to get dangerous, but they are determined to stay with Ed to the end. We then see Al coming out of the forest, but something's not quite right. I mean, Al should be with Major Miles in the east, so what is he doing here? We see Greed freaking out a little bit. Al says that he needs to talk and walks towards the forest. Ed questions if Al is all right. Then we hear Ling as he's taking control of Greed's body, and he's warning Ed that this is not Al. Pride then comes out of the armor and attacks. Pride then reveals himself and insults Greed for sharing the body with a human and really for just defecting. At the destroyed bridge, Miles and Grumman mention that they haven't recovered the Führer's body. Grumman will oversee the search as he just will not rest until he gets a confirmed kill. Grumman is fine with letting Mustang take on Central, and it's largely because he knows that Central will still be powerful enough and still kind of operate under the assumption that the Führer is alive. And so if Mustang leads a coup, they will attack him and handle him. And this will be a perfect opening for Grumman to come in and kind of cover things up, or not cover things up, but smooth things out and then become the Führer. We see into Miles' mind, and Miles apparently has already caught on to what Grumman is up to, so that's kind of funny. Pride now sees Greed as an enemy, and he wants to handle him, but Pride reveals that he has taken control of Al's actual body. At first, Ed just thinks, oh, he's impersonating Al's body, but he removes his head to show the blood seal. Pride begins to take on Ed. The Chimera hide, but Ed doesn't care as much. He's a little upset that they're not helping him, but he also told them to hide, so whatever. But he knows that they need him alive, so they're not going to kill him. And Pride acknowledges that he can't kill him, but, he could still dismember him. Ed starts to fight Pride, and he wants to keep him from the slums. Greed is captured by Pride, and then Ed uses his alchemy to shut off the power in the nearby slum. Everyone is curious as to what happened, but Hohenheim suspects something happened in the woods with the brothers. Because there are no lights, Pride can't cast his shadow, and he's just as blind as everybody else is in the dark. Greed realizes that Al's body is standing relatively close to the forest's edge. They figure this is because Salim is in the forest controlling him. Heinkel takes the form of a lion and attacks Pride. He's kind of benefiting from his ability to smell and just the animal bloodlust that comes from that. Darius tells Ed that they should just wait and stay put until Heinkel is done with Pride. Greed begins to ponder how Pride was even able to find them. Like, was this an ability that Father gave them? At this point, Gluttony attacks. It looks like Gluttony's sense of smell is what helped Pride. Greed points out that, Darius essentially has the same advantage as Gluttony. They're both blind, but they all both can smell things. So he starts to fight Gluttony, but of course, because it's dark, he accidentally attacks Ed. Greed realizes that Gluttony has an advantage over them in the dark, and then, of course, when the lights inevitably return, Pride will have the advantage. This means there is no way they're going to have an easy win. Ling tells Greed to switch with him because Ling has the ability to sense the presence of Homunculus. They switch, and Ling joins the fight. Gluttony gets angry and he begins to open his larger mouth that we see in the earlier episodes. But then all of a sudden, we just see a fast moving body just start slicing up Gluttony. Turns out this turns out Lawn Fawn has returned to join the fight. So yeah, we get Lawn Fawn back, and Ling's got control of the body and all that stuff. So a lot of cool things are happening, and now the brothers are technically meeting up again. What were some of your thoughts?
I am loving Hohenheim even more than I thought I was gonna love this character, just because he's done this 180, and I guess not. Maybe it's just in my mind, but maybe everyone's mind, because you see him first and he's like so serious, and we're seeing him from Ed's perspective, and now we get to see him, and he has a softer side, and about the promise that he wanted to keep for his to his wife, and the promise she made to him. It was really just a touching moment.
Yeah, and we are definitely going to see more of him too. Like it's clear that him leaving them had nothing to do with him not being wanting to be a father or him being irresponsible or him hating them or anything. Like it's clear that he left because he knew that this promise day was coming and he had something to fight for and he probably felt like he was the only one who could actually stop father. So he left to kind of find a way to stop father so that he could save the people he loves. Whereas, when we look at it in the early episodes, it just sounds like, oh, yeah, this is the guy who just deserted them in the middle of the night for no apparent reason.
And you could see that Ed is conflicted about this because he wanted, I don't know, when he was talking about his mom and how he wanted to, he would deliver her last words to him. I felt like he wanted it to hurt him in a different way, but it made him sad, or it made Hohenheim sad, or reflect back about how he kind of broke his promise to her. And I don't think that was the reaction Ed was expecting. And now he's conflicted about his feelings for his dad.
Yeah, I think he thinks that Hohenheim didn't care and that's why he left and everything. And I think there's still a part of him that blames Hohenheim leaving for her death. Like if he had been present, maybe she wouldn't have died, kind of thing. And so yeah, I think he's assuming, oh yeah, he never really cared, so I'm just gonna give him the message or whatnot. But then when he sees him crying, he realizes, oh yeah, he really does care.
I would love to see them, how they met, and kind of their backstory, his wife and him. Just because it seems like he didn't want to really be with anyone because he knew that his life was never ending, and that whoever he met or fell in love with or decided to be his companion would fade away while he has to continue living his life. So I really wonder, like, what changed him, what made this connection.
Yeah, I don't know because we know he's been wandering around for nearly 400 years, and he even says as much that he didn't make any kind of emotional connection with anybody until he met Trisha, and it's like I'm sure he's run into other people in those 400 years. So yeah, now I'm kind of curious what was special about that connection. I don't know. Maybe we will get an answer. Maybe we won't. Maybe it'll just be left up to the ether for us to decide. But that is a good point. Like what made him change in that type of relationship. But maybe it's also one of those things that doesn't really have an answer. Like, how did you know that this person was the one? And, all those weird questions. Maybe it's in that same vein.
True. I do think there's something very special, something about her, but like not just that, but to have children together and know that you're going to outlive your children. I mean, it's a lot going on for someone who knows. the pain of living an eternal life.
Yeah, because he can't die, and I think that's what really changed his mind too. Is when that reality hit that he is going to watch people. I guess he's going to watch the people he loves dies, and there's no way you can stop it. Really.
Yeah, so it really, I now I feel like now I'm getting this side of him, this other side. You know, he's not just this heartless guy, and he never was really a heartless guy. He was doing all this to preserve the one thing that he found in life that made him stop. You know, he was always this wanderer, but this his family made him stop, and now he has to leave the thing he loves to save it. I like that. This anime is so great.
Yes, it goes deeper with all these people. I agree. That's one of my favorite things about it is we do get this kind of stronger. What's what I'm looking for? This stronger look at the human condition that you don't necessarily get in a lot of the shonen anime that exists out there. We do get to see the depths of Hohenheim, and I, yeah, this is like the first. Not this is the first time we've seen Ed with Hohenheim, but this is the first time we've seen Ed with Hohenheim with like purpose. Because that first time we see Ed with Hohenheim in Risenbull, it's kind of in passing, and Ed doesn't really want to talk to him, and Hohenheim doesn't really want to push it either. But yeah, now it seems like they're actually like having a real conversation because they have like a mission to accomplish.
Yeah, and he tells Ed the truth. Not just Ed, but he tells everyone in that group the truth and I guess his backstory and everything that's going on. And he makes the offer to Ed that because he is a living philosopher's stone, that if they want, they can use him to get their bodies back. And Ed says that he doesn't want to use any more people, or like he doesn't want to use people, and he doesn't want people to be sacrificed for them to get their bodies back, which is great because you can see the pride, not like pride, but like the joy in his dad's face, being like, "These are good kids."
Yep, absolutely. And he is happy to hear that Edward views the souls in the same way that he does, because we clearly see from the way the homunculi view human souls and stuff, they just see it as energy to be used and whatnot. But Edward and Hohenheim and Al, for that matter, all see the human soul as like still being human, so they can't just use it willy nilly. Now, granted, Hohenheim doesn't really have a choice because he was turned into a philosopher's stone, so it is what it is on his end. But the brothers have a choice about whether or not to use a philosopher's stone for their own gains.
Yeah, and then they choose the other route because they believe that they can find a way to do it without a philosopher's stone.
Absolutely.
But speaking about pride, we get some pride action, which I'm not happy about at all.
Yes, and I think this is like if I remember correctly, this is the first time really any of them had to deal with pride, because I think the only people who've actually had to deal directly with pride, aside from obviously the homunculi and whatnot, were Riza and Hohenheim. So this is the first most of them are meeting of him and learning about his powers and stuff. So it's just, I think it's really throwing them for a loop because they they don't know how to fight this or how to deal with it. And yeah, and of course, just the emotional part of them thinking that they have Al, but they don't, but then they do, but he's being controlled, and yeah,
I mean, pride has to know what he's doing. Of course, he knows what he's doing, but it's like this more psychological warfare he's doing against Ed by hijacking Al's body. And just, I can't imagine what's going through Ed's head right now.
yeah, probably a lot of things, probably anger more than anything else, having to deal with somebody taking advantage of his brother like that.
It's just, it's insane. And then we get some cool fighting scenes because Pride is a very deadly fighter.
Oh yeah, there's no real defense against him either. Like everything we've seen them use against him, Like up to this point, like creating rock barriers and stuff, he's able to just chop through it like it's nothing. I mean, granted, Ed thought quickly and was able to figure out what was going on and figured, okay, if he can't create a shadow, then he's pretty much powerless. So shutting down the power, but then that leaves them at a disadvantage because they can't see either. So really, all they could do is just kind of wait.
And then, so they're in the dark, and Greed says that for Pride to be doing this, his like vessel needs to be near. And in my mind, I was like, oh, is he in a jar? Like, is it kind of like Father, where we see this jar, homunculus in a jar? But no, it's Salim's body is there. And man, what a turn! Like we were talking about Hohenheim, how he started one way and now he's completely changed in my mind. Salim, like, I liked this kid. He was great. He was interesting. What a turn this character has had for me.
Yeah, he is pure evil now, and that is just bizarre to see this like little kid who is just acting like a normal little kid, all excited and everything, and getting to meet his hero and all of that, and writing little reports at school. But now we just see that he's like, oh, a demon child.
True, and then we see the Chimera, the I don't remember his name, but it's the tiger one or lion one.
Yeah, Heinkel.
We see him use his animal instincts to see in the dark to attack Pride. And I know Pride is evil, but it was a little tough to watch him beat up a little kid.
Yeah, it is hard because that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a little kid getting beat up, but yeah, it is a little weird to watch that.
And Pride brings that up too as he's being beat up. He's like, "You're just gonna attack a little kid?"
Yeah, and obviously, I think he's just trying to mess with his head. But obviously, Heinkel also can smell that there's just something off with this kid, that it's not actually a human. So that's probably what he's. It's probably also beneficial that he can't actually see Salim, and then Salim's kind of talking in his pride voice, not in his little boy voice. So I'm guessing, even though he might not feel like an adult, like he's not the right height to be an adult, because he can't see him, I'm sure he's like able to work through that.
And then Gluttony pops out, and we got Gluttony involved in all this too, because, of course, when one thing goes wrong, you might as well just add more craziness to the motion. And they're like, we can take on Gluttony. And then I'm really bad at the names if the podcast listeners don't know already. But the other Chimera soldier, I call him Gorilla Guy.
Yeah, I think it's Darius, but we do see that Ed keeps calling him Mr. Gorilla.
Yes, and I loved that scene because he goes into fight, but he attacks Ed. And Ed says, Mr. Gorilla, I thought we were supposed to be near each other for protection. Or like how we wouldn't attack each other. And it's just and again, it's those funny moments in between all this action that's happening that I really enjoy in this anime.
Yes. And then, of course, the biggest, well, I don't know if you call it the biggest, but to me, it's the biggest thing that happened. We get Lawn Fawn back with automail.
Yeah, not just like it's not like your average auto mail. This stuff is meant to fight with.
Yeah, she clearly has like that little blade on it and everything. And we know she's not an alchemist, so she's not turning it into a blade the same way Ed does. So, yeah, hers is like purposely built for combat.
And we see her take down Gluttony. I don't know if it's because it's like a sneak attack, but she knocks him down easily.
Yeah, sneak attack and speed because you can barely see her move. So, yeah, she's able to get a how fast does Gluttony's sense of smell work? Is he able to tell that she's changed direction and react in enough time to actually defend himself? My guess is no.
What I do enjoy about this whole moment is that it's been long enough since we last saw Lon Fan that I forgot about her. Like I remember her as a character, and seeing her, I remember her, but I forgot about her as in the picture, and she comes back, which makes it just a great moment. No one's talked about her for a while. I guess Ling mentioned like, "Did you get her that message?" But it didn't really hit me like she's gonna come back in this awesome way. So I was surprised. At first, I thought it was Marco. I don't know why, just because how Gluttony was all electrocute looking, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Marco came in." Not that Marco could do a cool flip like that, but in my mind, I was like, "Marco's back." But no, it was Lanfan, and it's gonna be fun seeing her join the group and having to deal with it's not Ling, but it's greed. But Ling is in there.
Now, if anything, it's probably going to help because we can see that Ling and the Shingi's people are able to sense the what is the word? The presence of the homunculi, so it gives them the advantage for finding Ling, I guess, that he's now homunculus, and they're his guards, and that's kind of their duty. So that's actually probably my headcanon guess as to how she found them, was that she was probably tracking greed.
I'm excited that she's back, and I wonder what's gonna happen to Gluttony. We already, I felt like Gluttony was already on his last leg. Like he's using up a lot of his energy. So, is this the end of Gluttony, or are we gonna shrink him down to something as and keep him in a jar as well?
I don't know. He might just get straight up killed, is my guess, because I guess what we know about Gluttony is that he sort of kind of died in season three, but he was just kind of reconsumed back by Father, and I'm guessing he was made stronger again, so now he's back to his old self. But yeah, I mean, we what we also know about with like Lust, and I guess homunculi in general, is that when they use up their Philosopher's Stone, they die permanently. So, you know, Lawn Fawn is definitely getting the drop on him, so I don't think we're going to see him too much longer.
I mean, I wouldn't be too sad if Gluttony left us. He kind of weirds me out sometimes. I enjoy him sometimes because he's funny, but most of the time he weirds me out. So I wouldn't be too much. And Pride can handle a lot on his own. So he doesn't really
Yeah.
need too much backup.
I mean, right now he does because he can't see and he can't use his powers, but in general, yeah, he probably doesn't need it.
But, and it leaves us like in a great kind of cliffhanger kind of place for what's coming up next.
Hmm. Which hopefully we will get to find out in the next episode. I mean, Lonfon's back. Ling is back in control of Greed. Everybody's teaming up to fight Pride and Gluttony. A lot's going to happen in this next episode, I believe. And of course, I think we see Hohenheim kind of sees that something weird is going on, or he senses something weird is going on when all the power comes out. So I can only assume he's going to join the fight too, in some capacity.
Yeah, and I wonder if, Pride is going to recognize Hohenheim. Oh, wait, they've already met, so of course he'll recognize him.
Yeah.
But it is interest. I'm excited to see what happens next. Oh, and side note, I don't like Grumman anymore. Everything's changed. Characters flip. I flip flop on characters all the time. I liked Grumman last episode. This episode, now that I know Grumman has his alternative motives, and he's not like truly trying to help out the country, I'm kind of off of the Grumman train.
I think it's both. Like I don't like that he has this plan, like this plan B to take over the country for himself. But then again, it doesn't make him any different than Mustang in that sense, or Olivier for that matter, because they all kind of want that power. He's. It seems like he's just being strategic about it. I think they all want the same thing too, in the sense that they want the Fuhrer out, they want Father stopped, they want all that done. But yeah, I think they're definitely, I think, it's going to be a power struggle between Olivier, Mustang, and Grumman over who gets to be the Fuhrer, because we definitely see those three people have all wanted that power, or have all indicated that they wanted that power.
I would like to see Olivier's kind of why she, does she want it just so she can be in charge and she can have the most power? Because we know Mustang wants to make changes happen, and we've seen that since the Ishvalan War. And he looks up and he's like, "This system isn't working, and I know how to fix it, or I want to be the person that fixes it." So I feel like for him, there's like good involved in it, but I don't know about the other two.
Yeah, I guess all we can do is find out as time progresses.
I know, and we're getting closer to the end.
Yeah, probably another, like, let's see. I'm gonna say like another season and a half, maybe, and then we're done.
I know. It seems like it's coming up too fast.
Well, hopefully we can catch up in the next week and figure out more of what's happening.
I hope so.
Cool. Well, as always, people, I want to thank you for listening, and we will be here next week to talk more about FullMetal Alchemist. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy.
Bye.
Bye.